The business of war is hard and cruel irrespective of which side you're on. A captured diary of a Pakistani infantry officer described how his company had 71 men when they crossed the LOC and took up positions near Kargil in India. 25 of those 71 were evacuated because of altitude sickness before the war even began. No replacements ever came. The soldiers were left to their fate as the Indian Air Force bombed their supply lines. Some Pakistani outposts subsisted on spoons of sugar for the last few days. But India's armed forces overcame far greater challenges as they fought the invaders in the world's most terrain. My name is Kabir Bedi, and today on Guns and Glory, we continue with the war in Kargil. As the Indian Army and Air Force began operations in Kargil, the chief of the Pakistani Army, General Pervez Musharraf, went on an official visit to China. Between May 26th and May 29th, 1999, he had several conversations over the phone with his trusted chief of staff, Lieutenant General Mohammad Aziz. In one of them, General Aziz reported about a meeting chaired by Nawaz Sharif, at which the chiefs of the Pakistan Air Force and Navy complained to Sharif that Musharraf had kept them in the dark about the invasion of the Kargil heights.
इस सारी ऑपरेशन की कामयाबी की बुनियादी वजह यही है कि इन्होंने लोगों को नहीं बताया। अगर ये बताया जाता तो हमारा तजर्बा ये कहता है जैसे पहले सारी कोशिशें नाकाम होती रही, ये भी नाकाम हो जाती।
This telephone conversation was intercepted by RAW, India's intelligence agency, and made public. The transcripts were distributed to foreign embassies in Delhi. At once the world knew that from the beginning, Kargil had unquestionably been an operation of the Pakistan Army.
ठीक पीछे पाकिस्तानी घुसपैठिए वहां से घुसपैठियों को हटाकर सेना के लिए एक बहुत बड़ी चुनौती है। पाकिस्तानी सैनिक
The Kargil War was extensively covered on the ground by both the Indian as well as foreign electronic media. The government of Atal Bihari Vajpayee effectively used the media to convey to the world the level of duplicity that Pakistan was practicing.
Access was given to the Indian media by the Vajpayee government, but the focus of the Vajpayee government really was, on the body bags, because they wanted to whip up this passion and frenzy.
On the battleground, proof was there to see that those on top of the Kargil heights were no Mujahideen infiltrators, as claimed, but regular Pakistan Army units, following commands issued by their Rawalpindi headquarters. Each deadly thrust up the treacherous terrain of Kargil by the Indian Army was broadcast for the nation to see.
मेरे ठीक सामने उस पहाड़ी पर घुसपैठियों ने कब्जा जमा रखा है।
शनिवार 7:45 बजे है और भारतीय सेना ने
For the first time, Indians saw their heroes in action and realized that they too were mortal men of flesh and blood, and it was only a brave death that anointed them with immortality.
The people who won the Kargil War for us were really the junior officers and the mid-level officers. I would say even the senior leadership failed because they kept touting the official line that, it was some rats have come in, we'll be able to clear them in 48 hours. As we know, the war went on for over 2 months.
The final assault to capture point 5140 began from different directions. 3 battalions, 1 each from the Garhwal Rifles, Jammu and Kashmir Rifles, and the Naga Regiment were given the task of evicting the Pakistanis. Captain Vikram Batra of the 13 JAK Rifles and his Delta Company were among those tasked with recapturing point 5140. Nicknamed Sher Shah for his unstinting courage, Captain Batra decided to attack from the rear to surprise the enemy.
Vikram Batra's company and another company, Bravo company and Delta company, was supposed to go through and climb a vertical cliff face to point, this 5140, which was the most dominating height in that area. From there they could see for miles around, and tackling that was not a joke. They finally assaulted it from the cliff face. They actually crawled up the cliff, and the Pakistanis were so surprised. They never expected an assault from the side. They were firing from the direction of the gentler slope, this relatively gentler slope where they thought they would come up from. And the entire there was a fierce hand-to-hand fighting there. The entire Pakistani garrison was either killed, most of them fell to their deaths from that steep height in trying to get away.
Inspired by the extraordinary courage of Captain Batra, the 13 JAK rifles charged the enemy position and captured point 5140 at 3:30 in the morning on June 20th, 1999.
Once we took the Pakistanis off this, thereafter it was, the turning point of that war. It was the turning point of that war. They could not, their artillery observation post officers could not then bombard our lines of communication.
The capture of point 5140 set in motion a string of successes like point 5100, point 4700, Junction Peak and 3 Pimples. Captain Batra led his men to even more glorious victories with the recapture of point 4750 and point 4875.
One of their boys was hit badly and he was lying in the open and he was crying, "Somebody get me, somebody help me." So one of the JCOs of Vikram Singh, he said, "Sir, I'll get him." Vikram laid a hand on his shoulder and he said, "Tu baal bachedar hai, main shara hu. You are married. Look, I have nobody behind me." He went to get that boy out. He dragged him out, and as he had almost brought him to safety, that is the time the Pakistani sniper shot him through his chest.
In the early hours of 7th July 1999, Captain Batra fell in battle while rescuing an injured officer during an enemy counterattack. He was awarded the nation's highest honor for gallantry, the Paramveer Chakra. Pakistan had thought that the scare of a nuclear war would force the Western powers to intervene. More importantly, Pakistan wanted Kargil to be linked to the bigger issue of Kashmir. But for once it seemed no one was ready to listen to Pakistan. The international community realized that Pakistan was playing a dangerous game. And even Pakistan's traditional allies, Turkey, the OIC, and even China, did not come out in support of Pakistan. In fact, Kargil bust the myth of an all-weather relationship existing between China and Pakistan. The Prime Minister of Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif, had been trying to get America to come out in support. The Pakistan Foreign Ministry kept up a constant litany of how India was violating the sanctity of the LOC.
In my lifetime.
But on June 15th, President Bill Clinton urged Nawaz Sharif to pull his troops out of Kargil. In the same statement, President Clinton praised India's restraint in keeping the war localized.
The same United States of America which wasn't looking at this region till 1998 when we went nuclear had already started contacting the Vajpayee government.
On June 17th, the Prime Minister's security advisor, Brajesh Mishra, went to Geneva to meet the G8 leaders and brief them about Kargil. He also handed over a letter from the Indian Prime Minister for the US President. The letter warned that India's patience was running thin and, if required, India would be forced to cross the LOC and take the war to Pakistan.
The decision not to cross the line of control, it had lots of pros and cons, and there are lots of people who felt we should have retaliated across the LC. But when we did not retaliate across the LC and we focused the fighting there, the world lost the casus belli to intervene in this conflict. They could not intervene, and we took 2.5 months, but we methodically sorted them out.
India's Vajpayee took the stand that we will not violate the line of control and we will not cross the line of control, and a lot of that was done in conjunction with the US.
Right from the beginning of the conflict, India had been very clear that it would respond with force. But many measures were taken to deter Pakistan from escalating the conflict into a full-scale war. On May the 20th, even before Indian action on the ground began, the Indian Navy was put on full alert. Naval and Coast Guard aircraft began a continuous surveillance along the western coast.
A lot of ships of the Eastern Fleet were brought to the Western Fleet. They sailed out, almost readied themselves to more or less carry out a blockade of, ready to carry out a blockade of Pakistan. You know, choke their harbors at Karachi and elsewhere. And the Pakistanis were shaken. You see, they had never expected this response. They felt it would be confined to the Kargil heights, local infantry action. Then they found air power brought in, then they found the Navy deployed. You see, that is what shook them up.
Amphibious forces of the Indian Navy from the Andaman Islands in the east were moved to the western seaboard. As the exercise shifted westwards, Pakistan moved all its major warships out of Karachi. It also had to escort oil tankers from the Gulf, anticipating attacks or a blockade by Indian ships, which limited their supplies. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif later disclosed that at the time, Pakistan had just 6 days of fuel to sustain itself if a full-fledged war had broken out. While the Navy kept a watch on the sea, the fighting in the mountains intensified. But the all-important Tiger Hill still remained in Pakistani hands. Tiger Hill stands 16,700 feet high, overlooking Dras. It is a massive feature, almost 1 kilometer wide at its base, and was formidably defended by the Pakistanis. The Pakistani Northern Light Infantry had taken positions on top of Tiger Hill, as well as on the high ridge that ran to its west. Several peaks south of Tiger Hill had also been occupied by the Pakistani soldiers, and these provided observation points of the surrounding valleys and ridgelines. Point 4460, a kilometer south of Tiger Hill, was within supporting range of the NLI's artillery mounted on Tiger Hill. The Tingle Nala divided the complex, and Hill 4875 and Point 4540 stood opposite Tiger Hill. The Pakistanis defending Tiger Hill and the Western Ridge had moved in heavy ammunition to create an engagement area with interlocking fire from multiple sides. An anti-personnel minefield also blocked the approach from Point 4540. A 12.7mm gun atop Trig Hill, a peak 2 kilometers northwest of Tiger Hill, provided the Pakistanis additional heavy weapon support. Their artillery battery on Point 4388 fired into the engagement area as well. The Indian Army faced a nearly impossible task in recapturing Tiger Hill. India had captured Point 4460 in late May, and this provided a base to direct fire onto Tiger Hill. In order to conserve manpower, Pakistan's Northern Light Infantry abandoned Point 4540. Both these positions were to prove critical for India in mounting attacks on the Tiger Hill complex. Given the urgency, unacclimatized and poorly equipped soldiers of the 1 Naga and the 8th Sikh were sent to assault Tiger Hill. Murderous crossfire from the Pakistani positions inflicted heavy casualties on the Indian soldiers, and the assaults failed. The units surrounded Tiger Hill and dug in to wait. The Pakistan NLI launched counterattacks, but they lacked the numbers to push the Indian battalions off the hill. NLI soldiers even resorted to rolling boulders downhill onto the Indian forces. And then the Indian bombings began. As India's massive bombardment began, it stretched the Pakistani positions to the limit. India continued pounding the forward slopes of Tiger Hill and the ridge. with as many as 1,200 rounds exploding every 5 minutes. The Indian Army found an undefended flank on the east, and through this, they launched their attack on Tiger Hilltop. At the same time, a small raiding party penetrated Pakistan's line of defense on the western ridge. 25 soldiers of the 18 Grenadiers were ordered to advance and capture Tiger Hill. After scaling the rocks for 3 nights, they were just 50 meters below Tiger Hill when a stone slipped, giving away their position.
Seeing this, the enemy opened up heavy machine gun, grenade and rocket fire, and in hand-to-hand fight, the team leader Havaldar Madan Lal and 5 soldiers got killed.
But 7 soldiers who were near the Pakistani bunkers could neither advance nor retreat. One of them was Grenadier Yogendra Singh Yadav.
Sensing the gravity of the situation, Yogendra Yadav wanted to silence the automatic fire of enemy machine gun which was coming from a bunker by throwing a grenade inside it. He mustered up his courage, crawled up to the bunker and lobbed grenades inside the machine gun bunker and killing 4 Pakistanis in it.
Yogendra Singh sustained 15 bullet injuries and was the sole survivor of the 7 soldiers of the 18th Grenadiers who stayed on to fight the Pakistanis.
यहाँ पैर में हाथ में गोली मारी, लास्ट में उसने यहाँ पे गोली मारी। तो 3 दिन तो हो गए थे पहाड़ी में चलते चलते, पूरी पैंट फट चुकी थी पीछे से। तो पर्स रखा हुआ था यहाँ पर, पर्स में कुदरती तौर पर जो है गिलट के 5-5 रुपए के कई सिक्के थे। जब उसने गोली मारी तो वो सिक्के पे लगी तो रिकोचिट होगी गोली, तो मुझे एहसास लगा कि मैं मर गया। जब उसका दूसरा जवान बंदा साथी जो हमारे साथ पास आया वेपन उठाने के लिए, उसने मेरा AK-47 उठाया और वापस मुड़ा तो मेरी एकदम आंखें खुली ऐसे जैसे नींद से जगा हूँ। अंदर से एक आया कि अब यार अभी तक नहीं मरा तो मरेगा भी नहीं। मैंने अपना एक ग्रेनेड निकाला और उसके ऊपर ऐसे थूक दिया।
The injured Grenadier Yadav single-handedly kept on fighting and before falling unconscious passed on a vital piece of information. The Pakistanis were about to retreat. For his bravery, Yogendra Singh Yadav was awarded the Paramveer Chakra. The Pakistani forces had been split in 2. They desperately tried to counterattack to join their lines. On July 8th, facing near certain defeat, the NLI abandoned Tiger Hill, leaving all their dead behind. While most of the Kargil War was fought around Kargil, there was one battle which was fought on the Siachen Glacier. Pakistan's NLI had occupied the Balal Post, 19,000 feet high, the highest point that divides Indian and Pakistani positions in Siachen, a height where soldiers have to fight for every breath. In an amazing feat of mountaineering, 48 heroic men of the Indian Army climbed 1,800 feet of near vertical rock face to surprise the Pakistanis and recapture Balal Post on June the 27th, 1999. Such is the grit of the Indian soldier. But for the Kargil War to end, Nawaz Sharif had to rush to Washington. On June 27th, Pakistan's army chief announced at a press conference that Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif would shortly be leaving for Washington to meet President Bill Clinton to find a solution to the Kargil crisis. At that time, Nawaz Sharif was in Beijing, meeting the leaders of China. On June 28th, he abruptly ended his China visit and returned to Pakistan. In Washington, President Clinton changed the dates of his planned vacation to meet Nawaz Sharif. The US had even pushed for Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee to travel to Washington, but Vajpayee refused. Bill Clinton met Nawaz Sharif on July the 4th. Behind the scenes, Pakistani and US officials sat across the table to hammer out the exact wording for the declaration that would follow. Bill Clinton's national security advisor, Samuel Berger, constantly discussed the wording with Vajpayee's security advisor, Bravesh Mishra, in Washington. In Delhi, Prime Minister Vajpayee waited for President Clinton to call and tell him that Pakistan would withdraw its remaining troops with immediate effect. By July 11th, the remaining units of the Northern Light Infantry began pulling back across the LOC as Indian bombardment continued. And Indian troops recaptured key peaks in the Batalik sector. India set a deadline of July 16th for all Pakistanis to return to their side of the line of control. On July the 12th, Nawaz Sharif went on television to explain to his people why Pakistan was retreating from Kargil. The war in Kargil officially ended on 26 July, but it had far-reaching consequences for the future. Kargil was the beginning of a tussle between Pervez Musharraf and Nawaz Sharif that resulted in Sharif being ousted in a military coup and Musharraf taking over as dictator. Today, the wheel has turned again, with Nawaz Sharif back in power and Musharraf being tried for treason. India learnt many lessons from Kargil. It ushered in long-term changes in the army's deployment and response strategy along the line of control. As the economy boomed, defense spending kept going up year after year. Kargil also made the Bofors guns legendary. And in Kargil, the Indian Air Force wrote the instruction manual for high-altitude air warfare. But war is war. And where there are guns and glory, there is also terrible death and suffering. We end this series with the idealistic hope that there are no more wars and that glory not depend on the barrel of a gun.